The Grand Civic Atrium held 300 people that evening, and every single one of them had come to watch my life's work be celebrated. Press cameras stood along the back wall. The mayor sat in the front row. Behind the stage, the architectural models of the Northbridge Urban Renewal Project caught the light. 12 years of my designs, my calculations, my sleepless nights, made physical and beautiful. My name is Elena Marsh. I am a senior architect with 20 years of experience, and every brick of the Northbridge project came from my mind. I designed it, fought for it, and gave up more than I can say to keep it alive. I stood in the wings in my navy blazer, heart thumping, waiting for CEO Dominic Vail to call my name. He had promised he would. 6 months ago, on live television, he looked straight into the camera and said, "Elena Marsh will stand on that stage. This project is hers." I saved the clip. Dominic stepped to the podium. The room went quiet. He smiled, the smile of a man who had already changed the story. The visionary behind Northbridge, his voice boomed, represents the future of this industry. I took one step forward. Dominic gestured to the opposite side of the stage, and Zane Prescott, 29 years old, 6 months at the firm, walked out to thunderous applause. I stood in the shadow of the curtain. Unseen. Erased. The mayor shook Zane's hand. Cameras flashed. Then Dominic's eyes found mine across the room, not with guilt, but with one quiet message: stay quiet. My hands were ice cold. But they were not shaking. 6 months earlier, I sat across from Dominic on a national business television program. The studio lights were warm and bright, and I felt proud for the first time in a long while. The host turned to Dominic and asked, "Who will lead the Northbridge ceremony?" Dominic turned to me. He held my eyes. Then he said, slowly and clearly, "Elena." Without question. This is her project. She will be the face of it. I nearly cried on air. I held it together, but only just. 12 years. 70-hour weeks. A marriage that nearly broke twice under the weight of this project. 2 competing job offers I turned down to stay loyal. I believed him because he said it publicly, on the record, with a camera pointing at his face. That evening, I saved the clip to my phone and showed it to my husband Owen. He watched it quietly and said, "Get it in writing, Elena." I laughed. I told him he was being too cautious. I should have listened. Now I sit in my car outside the Civic Atrium, applause still leaking through the glass doors. I open the clip on my phone. His eyes. His certainty. His lie, time-stamped and still live on the channel's website. I don't cry. I open my notebook instead. I don't drive home. I sit in the car park for nearly 2 hours, not replaying the ceremony but replaying the years. I remember sketching the first structural concept for Northbridge at midnight in a small cafe in 2013. I was 35 years old, certain I could change how a city felt to the people living in it. I remember running community consultations in church halls, listening to residents who had been failed by city planners for decades. I carried their voices into every decision I made. I remember the funding collapse of 2017, when the whole project nearly died. I sat alone that long weekend and wrote a 40-page recovery proposal that saved it. I remember my daughter Amara's 8th birthday, watched through a video call from a rain-soaked building site. I remember Owen sitting across the dinner table in 2020, saying quietly, "I feel like I'm married to a building." I gave everything to this project. Not for glory. I gave it because I believed it mattered, and I believed the man who promised me the stage. My phone shows 14 missed calls. 3 from Owen. 2 from colleagues. 1 from a journalist named Kara Novak, a name I don't recognize yet. I put the phone face down on the passenger seat. Then I pick it up again. Because under the hurt, something harder is waking up. And it is not grief. Zane Prescott arrived at the firm 7 months ago carrying a job title that hadn't existed before he walked through the door. Director of Urban Innovation Strategy. Nobody could explain what it meant. Nobody asked. Dominic had met him at an industry conference. Zane had a background in branding, a large social media following, and a talent for making complicated things sound simple, which really meant making people who understood complicated things feel unnecessary. Within 2 months, he was in every senior meeting. Within 4, his name was appearing on client documents. Within 6, he was presenting my Northbridge phasing plan to City Council, with my name removed from the slide headers. I flagged it once. Formally, in writing, to Dominic. He replied with 2 words, noted. Moving on. What I didn't know yet was that Zane had been quietly sending Dominic versions of the Northbridge presentation where I appeared only as a footnote. And Dominic had been forwarding those versions to the mayor's office for 3 full months. The picture was being repainted slowly, 1 layer at a time. But here is the thing about paintings, you can restore them. The original brushwork is always underneath. You just need someone who knows how to look for it. And I had spent 12 years leaving my mark in places they would never think to check. 4 months before the ceremony, I started to understand what was really happening. A senior colleague named Paul was pushed out of his role in a company restructure. He was the 3rd long-serving senior to leave quietly in 18 months. All 3 had been replaced by Dominic's new hires, all in their late 20s, all better at presentation slides than structural engineering. Paul handed me a box of his belongings on his last day. Before he left, he said something I didn't fully understand at the time, document everything, Elena. Not for them. For you. I open the glove box of my car and take out a black notebook, not a company notebook, a personal one I bought myself, never connected to any firm system. Inside it is 12 weeks of careful records. Every meeting where my contributions were credited to someone else. Every email where my name was removed from project documents. Every date, every room, every witness present. I didn't start this notebook out of anger. I started it because something felt wrong and I had learned, over 20 years, to trust that feeling. Preparation is not paranoia. The notebook is only the beginning. There are other things I built quietly into this project, invisible things, that Dominic and Zane never knew existed. And those things are about to matter very much. The morning after the ceremony, I arrive at the office early. I don't come to confront anyone. I come to watch. The office moves in a particular kind of silence, the kind that settles after everyone has witnessed something wrong but nobody has named it yet. People who applauded Zane the night before now study their screens with unusual focus. Then Diana Osei appears at my door, carrying 2 coffees. Diana is a structural engineer who has worked beside me for 9 years. She sits down without asking, sets a small USB drive on the desk, and slides it toward me. I've been recording the weekly project reviews for 4 months, she says carefully. I noticed my contributions disappearing from the meeting minutes. I think yours are in there too. I look at the USB. Then at Diana. She nods once. She has her own notebook, she tells me. She has been doing exactly what Paul told me to do. We are not alone. But before she leaves, she lowers her voice. Zane noticed I wasn't clapping last night. He was watching the room. Whatever you're planning, move faster than they expect. I pick up the USB drive. The first lock had been my notebook. This is the second. And I already know exactly where the third one is hidden. That evening I sit at my kitchen table and go through Diana's recordings. There is no single dramatic moment on those files. What there is, instead, is a pattern, quiet, steady, and unmistakable. Meeting after meeting, my design language comes out of Zane's mouth as if it were his own. My analysis. My phasing logic. My structural rationale, all presented by someone who had never held a set of blueprints before joining this firm. But the real discovery comes when I pull up the Northbridge project page on the firm's website, the version that went live the morning of the ceremony. 6 months ago, it listed me as lead project architect. Today, it reads, developed under the strategic direction of Zane Prescott, Director of Urban Innovation. My name appears once, deep in the 3rd paragraph, as contributing senior staff. 12 years. Reduced to a subordinate clause. I run a web archive search and find every saved version of the page going back 2 years. 6 months ago, my name at the top. 4 months ago, moved to paragraph 2. 2 months ago, paragraph 3. Last week, almost gone entirely. A slow, traceable deletion. I export every version with its timestamp. I forward everything to my personal email, my personal cloud storage, and a second USB I keep at home. They erased me in plain sight. They just didn't know I was watching. 3 days after the ceremony, my phone buzzes with a message from a number I don't recognize. My name is Constance Okafor. I'm on the board. I was at the ceremony. I would like to speak privately. Not at the office. I search the name immediately. Constance Okafor, non-executive board director, former city planning commissioner, appointed 8 months ago. I have never spoken to her directly. We meet the following morning at a small cafe 2 streets from the office. Constance doesn't waste time. She tells me that 2 other board members raised questions after the ceremony. They had read the original Northbridge grant applications, all submitted to the city 4 years ago, all carrying my name as lead architect. They noticed the gap between those documents and what they had witnessed on that stage. She isn't offering me anything yet. No promises. No rescue. Just information and one question. Do you have documentation of your authorship that goes back before anyone else's involvement? I think of the notebook. The USB. The web archive. The city filings. And something else, something I built quietly into the project files 3 years ago, a silent protection nobody at the firm knew about. Yes, I say. I have the original structural filings with the city. My name is on every single page. Constance studies me for a moment. Then she nods. Here is something nobody at the firm ever knew about me. 15 years ago, at a previous firm, I watched a colleague lose her entire body of work to a senior partner who claimed it as his own. She had no proof. She had no protection. She left the industry entirely. I made myself a promise that day. Since then, every original design document I have ever created, every master drawing, every phasing plan, every structural report, carries a hidden metadata tag. It is not dramatic. It is a simple unique identifier embedded inside the file itself. Invisible during normal use. Fully traceable through forensic analysis. The method was approved under the firm's original intellectual property policy, the version from 8 years ago, before Dominic rewrote the rules, which I had carefully archived. That evening I opened the original Northbridge master plan on my home computer. My tag is there, embedded in every layer of every file, exactly as I placed it. Then I opened the version Zane presented to City Council 6 months ago, the one with my name scrubbed from the headers. I run the analysis. His version was built directly from my master files. The tag transferred. My authorship is embedded, invisibly but permanently, in every single document Zane has ever presented as his own work. The foundation of the building is mine. And now, so is the proof. 1 week after the ceremony, the city's planning authority holds a technical briefing on Northbridge Phase 2. Zane is introduced as the project lead. I am listed as senior support staff on the agenda, which I accept without comment and take my seat in the 3rd row. The planning authority's chief engineer, Dr. Ravi Menon, runs the session. He is a careful, unhurried man who has reviewed city projects for 2 decades. He does not accept vague answers. He starts with the load-bearing specifications for the eastern residential towers. Zane gives a hesitant response. Dr. Menon moves on without comment. He asks about the drainage response model for the flood risk corridor. Zane deflects. Dr. Menon's pen keeps moving. He asks about the community consultation weighting methodology. Zane gives an answer that is confidently, completely wrong. Dr. Menon corrects him in a level voice with no change of expression. The silence that follows fills the room and stays. Then Dr. Menon looks directly past Zane to where I am sitting. Ms. Marsh, could you clarify the drainage rationale? I answer clearly, thoroughly, from memory. Every eye in the room moves between Zane and me. Nobody speaks. Dr. Menon nods slowly and writes something on his notepad. From where I sit, I can just make out my name. He has drawn a circle around it. I expect Dominic to pull back after the planning briefing. Instead, he does the opposite. An internal memo lands in every senior staff inbox on Friday afternoon. It formally confirms Zane Prescott as project lead for Northbridge Phase 2 and lists me as a technical consultant. In corporate language, that is a demotion. It is designed to sting quietly and be forgotten over the weekend. But there is something in the memo's metadata that Dominic didn't consider. The file was drafted 3 weeks ago, before the ceremony. Before the technical briefing. Before any of Zane's public failures became visible. This was always the plan. The ceremony was not the end of my erasure. It was just the beginning. I forward the memo to my attorney, a woman named Adiz Obi, who specializes in intellectual property and employment law. I send it with a clear summary of everything that has happened, the notebook, the USB, the web archive, the metadata, the planning briefing. Adiz calls me within the hour. Her voice is calm and completely certain. They have exposed themselves, she says. Every move they've made has left a mark. They didn't hide it carefully because they never imagined you would look. I write that down. Then I begin preparing the next step. On Monday morning, Dominic calls me into his office. No assistant present. Nobody taking minutes. He pours me a coffee I don't want and asks about my weekend with the warmth of a man who has rehearsed this conversation. Then he leans forward. He says the firm is in a critical growth phase. He says optics matter to investors. He says Zane represents a market-facing narrative the board needs to attract younger capital. He says my legacy is secure, internally, among the people who understand the work. Then he says, I'd hate for any unnecessary conflict to get in the way of everything you've genuinely built here. I ask him to explain what he means by unnecessary conflict. He smiles, a careful smile with no warmth behind it. I just mean the project is bigger than any one person. Including you. Including me. I thank him for his time. I stand up. I leave. In the corridor, I write down every word I can remember. Date, time, exact phrases. I email it to Adiz immediately and copy my personal address. The words unnecessary conflict go into my notebook in double underline. He thought that was a warning. He didn't understand that every time he opened his mouth, he was handing me more evidence that he knew exactly what he had done. Kara Novak called the day of the ceremony. I finally call her back. She is an investigative journalist at a respected urban development publication. She has been researching a pattern, experienced female architects being quietly uncredited on major public projects, their work attributed to male hires with more presentable brand identities. Northbridge is not her first case. It is her fifth. She tells me she noticed the website changes herself. She pulled the archived versions, cross-referenced them with the original city grant applications, and already has my name on every document. She is not asking me to be a source for someone else's story. She is asking if I want to tell my own. I don't say yes immediately. I ask about protections. I ask about the editorial process. I ask how she handles sources. She answers everything clearly and without rushing me. Then she adds something that makes me sit very still. I want to be honest with you. The story is coming regardless. I believe it's better if it comes from you. I tell her I need a few days. After the call I sit quietly in my kitchen. There is one detail she mentioned in passing that I cannot stop thinking about. Did you know Zane Prescott worked at 2 other firms before this one? And that both firms lost major contracts shortly after he left? Adiz and I agree immediately, we will not go to the firm's internal department. That road leads nowhere. Instead, she files a formal intellectual property dispute with the National Professional Architecture Body, the independent organization that governs attribution rights on publicly funded projects. The filing is exact. It claims improper attribution of authorship on a project receiving £47 million of public funding. It is supported by the original grant applications, the metadata analysis, Diana's audio recordings, the web archive timeline, and the Planning Authority briefing transcript, including Dr. Menon's own handwritten notes, submitted as an exhibit. The filing requires the firm to respond within 21 days. It also triggers an automatic notification to the City Planning Authority and to the Northbridge project funding body. I don't tell anyone at the office. I walk in on Tuesday morning and I do my work. By midday, Dominic's assistant has sent out an urgent summons for a leadership meeting with no agenda listed. By 3 in the afternoon, 3 colleagues have sent me quiet texts with the same question: what did you do? What I did was simple. I moved the battle out of a corridor where Dominic controlled the rules and into an official arena where he does not. For the first time in months, the ground beneath me is completely level. Kara Novak hasn't published yet. But someone at the Planning Authority has talked. An architectural trade forum picks up a thread. Sources report a formal attribution dispute has been filed on the Northbridge project. The original lead architect was allegedly uncredited at the public ceremony. No names. No detail. Just enough. The post is anonymous. The firm says nothing. But within 24 hours, 3 professional bodies have referenced it and it has spread across 2 industry networks. By the end of the day, the comments section is full. The pattern Kara identified: experienced women, stripped credits, young men positioned as the public face, resonates immediately. It is not about Northbridge. It is about something every person in those comment threads has seen or lived. Stories start appearing, not about me specifically, but about the same thing wearing different names and different project numbers. A senior partner at an international architecture firm posts publicly, "We know who designed Northbridge." The public record is clear. The professional community is watching. By evening, Dominic's firm is trending on 2 industry platforms. Dominic calls my office at 6. I do not answer. I sit at my kitchen table, open the notebook to a clean page, and write the date at the top. The current is moving faster now. And I am no longer the one fighting it alone. The professional body's investigation team requests the original project documents from the City Planning Authority directly, bypassing the firm entirely. What comes back is a complete, unedited record: 114 original design submissions, going back 12 years, each one bearing my professional registration number. The foundation structural plans. The environmental impact models. The community consultation frameworks. The drainage design. The phasing sequence. Every major decision that shaped Northbridge, certified, dated, and filed under my name in the city's own archive. These are not internal firm documents. They cannot be edited or quietly revised. They are public records, legally binding, time-stamped from years before Zane Prescott ever heard of this firm. The investigation officer writes in the preliminary finding, "The primary author of record is clear and consistent across the full project archive." Zane's legal team submits a counterclaim. They list as contributions, the Phase 2 stakeholder communication plan, the ceremony branding concept, and the press release strategy. The investigation officer notes that all 3 items were created after 2023. The Northbridge project began in 2011. The contrast requires no comment. The documents speak for themselves, as they always have. I read the preliminary finding at my kitchen table, holding a mug of tea that goes cold. After 12 years, the record is finally speaking at full volume. A week into the professional body investigation, Zane changes. The easy confidence I watched him carry through every meeting is quieter now. He checks the room before he speaks. He finishes fewer sentences. He moves through the office like a man who has realized the floor beneath him is not as solid as he believed. I observe this without pleasure. I am not interested in watching him suffer. I am interested in what he does next. On a Wednesday afternoon, he finds me alone in the corridor. Nobody else is nearby. He looks younger than I remembered, and his voice, usually smooth, comes out unsteady. "I want you to know I didn't understand the full picture at first," he says. "By the time I did, things had already gone too far. I didn't know how to stop it. I look at him for a long moment without speaking. Then I say, write that down. Exactly what you just told me. Date it, sign it, and send it to your own personal email tonight. He blinks. Why? Because you'll want proof that you said it, when the time comes. I walk past him. He stands in the corridor alone. That night, Zane sends a 3-page written statement to his personal email account. He doesn't know it yet. But he has just chosen a side. The Northbridge project received part of its funding from a public regeneration grant issued by the city. That means the city has a legal interest in how the project's authorship is recorded. When the professional body's preliminary finding becomes known, the mayor's chief of staff, a focused woman named Harriet Webb, calls the investigation officer directly. She asks one precise question: is the city's original grant award, made to Elena Marsh as the named lead architect, legally compromised by the attribution dispute? The answer is careful but clear. Potentially, yes. If public money was awarded based on a professional's credentials and that professional's role is later misrepresented, the funding agreement may have been breached. The city's legal team opens its own review. The mayor is briefed privately. She says nothing publicly, but her office quietly withdraws from a planned joint press appearance with the firm, scheduled to mark the Phase 2 groundbreaking. The withdrawal is listed in the announcement as a scheduling conflict. No explanation given. Inside the firm, no one believes it. Dominic's team had built the entire Phase 2 launch around that appearance. The mayor standing beside the firm's new leadership was the story they were selling to investors. Without it, the narrative collapses. The ground keeps shifting. And it is not shifting in Dominic's direction. Constance Okafor calls me early on the morning of the board's emergency session. She tells me 2 things. First, 3 of the 5 board members are deeply troubled, not only by the professional body investigation, but by the city's legal review, which Dominic had not disclosed to the board before it began. Second, Dominic had presented the Northbridge project to a group of private investors the previous year. He used my professional credentials and my industry awards as evidence of the firm's capability. He did not name me, but the presentation relied entirely on my track record to make its case. That may constitute misrepresentation to investors, Constance says quietly. The board meets for 4 hours. I am not in the room. But I can picture it. Dominic walks out without speaking. His assistant follows a half-step behind him. No one says a word about what was decided. That afternoon, a formal letter arrives at my home address, not from Dominic, but from the board's own legal representative. It acknowledges the attribution dispute. It acknowledges the firm's obligation to review its documentation practices. It invites me to a meeting to discuss my role and interests going forward. The board had gone around Dominic to reach me directly. The structure of authority in that firm had just changed shape entirely. The meeting with the board's legal representative includes an offer. It is genuinely generous. Full back attributed credit across all project records. A public statement from the firm acknowledging my role as lead project architect. Financial compensation. A revised title. And a confidentiality clause. There it is. One document, near the back, that would seal my mouth. About the ceremony. About Dominic's memo. About Diana's recordings. About everything that was done, and the pattern it belonged to. I read every word carefully. Then I ask one question. Is Dominic Vale still in his role? The legal representative pauses. That's a separate matter currently under board review. Then this offer is premature, I say. What happened to me didn't happen in a vacuum. And I am not willing to be compensated in exchange for staying silent about a problem that will simply be inflicted on someone else the moment I stop talking. I decline the offer, calmly, completely, without raising my voice. Adiz photographs the entire document before we leave the room. The refusal of a silencing agreement is now part of the official record. They came to that meeting expecting to pay me to disappear. What they received instead was evidence that they knew exactly what they had done, and that they were afraid of what I still might say. Kara's article publishes on a Thursday morning. It is 4,000 words. It opens with a photograph of the original grant application, my name printed at the top, placed beside the ceremony program with Zane's name in bold. Kara has reported it carefully, with 5 architects across 4 firms, each with a parallel story. Northbridge is the centerpiece because the public record is the clearest. The article does not call Dominic a villain. It does not need to. It simply presents the documentation, quotes Dr. Menon's briefing notes, references the professional body investigation, and includes Zane's written statement, the one he sent to his personal email, which he chose to share with Kara after 2 days of quiet deliberation. His statement includes one line that travels further than the rest. By the time I understood the full picture, the machinery was already moving and I didn't feel I had the standing to stop it. By midday, the article has been shared 40,000 times. By evening, 3 national outlets have picked it up. My phone does not stop ringing. I answer one call. It is my daughter Amara. She has seen the article and she is crying, not with sadness, but with something that sounds like relief finally finding its way out. People know now, Mum, she says. They actually know. The board votes on Friday. 4-1. Dominic Vale is asked to step down as chief executive with immediate effect. He invokes a procedural right to cast an observer vote against his own removal. The motion passes anyway, and he is asked to leave the room. The official statement is worded carefully, following a review of the firm's governance, attribution practices, and stakeholder management. The board has concluded that a leadership transition serves the best interests of the firm. Corporate language. Clean and bloodless. Every person reading it understands exactly what it means. Zane Prescott resigns before the vote is even announced. His statement is 2 sentences. He cites personal reasons. The planning authority confirms it will formally update all technical records to reflect my role as lead project architect across the full 12 years of the Northbridge project. The city's legal review closes without finding an actionable breach, but issues a formal governance recommendation. All publicly funded projects must maintain verifiable authorship records from commencement. That recommendation will be cited in city policy for years to come. The professional body's investigation is formally suspended. The firm has agreed to implement all recommendations in full and in public. Late on Friday afternoon, Constance Okafor sends me a text. One word. Done. I don't follow Dominic's movements after the vote. I don't need to. People tell me things. 3 months later, he surfaces at a smaller firm in an advisory role. The announcement is quiet, a short paragraph on the firm's website, no fanfare, no press release. The title sounds impressive. The circumstances make it something else entirely. He gives one interview to a business podcast with a modest audience. He speaks about leadership lessons and the importance of giving credit generously. The host nods and doesn't push back. The comments section is less forgiving. I read none of it. What I do, that evening, is find the clip again. The television interview from 6 months before the ceremony. The studio lights. The leather chairs. Dominic turning to face me on camera and saying, clearly, firmly, with the conviction of a man performing honesty, Elena. Without question. This is her project. She will be the face of it. I watch it once. Not with anger. Not with satisfaction. With the particular steady clarity that comes from having survived something hard and understood it completely. Then I close the laptop. That chapter belongs to him. I am already building the next one. And the next one has my name on the door from the very first day. 2 weeks after the board vote, my professional address receives an email from Dr. Ravi Menon. He writes that the City Planning Authority has decided to appoint an independent lead architect for Northbridge Phase 2, someone entirely outside the firm's now scrutinized leadership. He has recommended me by name. The role is independent and contractual. Full public attribution is guaranteed from the first day. There is no clause requiring me to stay silent, no restriction on what I may discuss, no condition attached to my voice or my history. The fee is 40% higher than my previous salary. I read every line twice. Old habit. Good habit. Then I call Diana Osei. I'm going to need a structural engineer I trust, I tell her. She laughs, a real laugh, the kind that comes from somewhere deep and honest. I already updated my CV, she says. I sign the contract at my kitchen table that evening. Owen sits beside me. Amara is on a video call from her university, watching. The pen I use is one I bought myself years ago, saving it for a moment that felt worth it. I believed that moment would come, even in the years when the evidence for it was thin. This is it. 6 months later, I stand on the stage at the Grand Civic Atrium. Northbridge Phase 2 groundbreaking ceremony. Same building. Same mayor, a different handshake, this one earned. My name is on the podium banner, on the program cover, and on the architectural rendering displayed behind me. Dr. Menon sits in the front row. Constance Okafor is beside him. Diana stands in the wings in her site jacket, wearing a quiet and steady smile. 3 of the original Northbridge community residents, people I first consulted in a church hall in 2013, sit in the second row. They have waited 12 years for this building to rise. I speak without notes. I talk about the project, about the people it was built to serve, and about the responsibility that comes with shaping the places where real lives are lived. I don't mention Dominic. I don't mention the ceremony, the broken promise, or the months I spent fighting to reclaim what was mine. Everyone in this room already knows. Near the end, I say, 12 years ago, I made a promise to this community, that this building would be built with them, not just for them. That promise was never broken. I pick up the golden spade and drive it into the earth. The cameras flash, catching my name on the banner behind me, clear, permanent, and exactly where it was always meant to be. If this story reached something in you, if you have ever been overlooked, pushed aside, or had someone take credit for what you built, remember this, document everything, trust your preparation, and never let anyone rewrite your truth. Share this with someone who needs to hear it today.